because you mentioned numbers, I read an article that you wrote some time ago. I think it was on your LinkedIn profile, and sorry, but it made me laugh. The title made me laugh. Or maybe it was a chapter of your book. I don't remember now, but it said, and I have it here, how my cardiologist almost gave me a heart attack.
Yes.
And it made me laugh. And you were talking about the right and wrong way to communicate numbers.
Yeah.
So tell us more about this.
The wrong way is if you're communicating numbers that scares the recipient to death. That's the wrong way. So basically, that's a chapter of my book, and it was also a blog post as well. So how my cardiologist almost gave me a heart attack. I was going for a routine physical, and I'm over 50, so you have to go through all the heart tests and everything. And the cardiologist, instead of my regular cardiologist, some young guy cardiologist came out, and you could tell he wasn't that experienced. And he said, "Oh, well, looking at your numbers, based on your results, you have a 5% chance of having a heart attack within the next 10 years. And I literally, my knees started shaking, my heart started pounding, I thought I was going to pass out. And I stopped for a second. I said, wait a minute, doesn't that mean that there's a 95% chance that I won't have a heart attack within the next 10 years? He said, yeah, that's another way of looking at it. And I was like, yeah, I think so. So he was delivering accurate information, right? But was that really the message he wanted to convey? I don't think so, right? So, because basically, as it turned out, those numbers were statistically normal for anyone of my age group, right? So, so that's an example of how you communicated numbers. He wasn't wrong, but was he right? Right? Mm-hmm. And other classic examples are Steve Jobs. I don't know if you've ever read the Carmine Gallo book, The Presentation Secrets of Steve Jobs, but he has a great video as well. And he talks about how Steve Jobs, instead of saying, when he introduced the iPod, this little device holds 5 gigabytes of data, he said this holds 1,000 songs in your pocket, right? If you're not a technology person, who cares? Who even knows what a gig is, right? Yeah. But if you say I can carry my whole CD collection around with me in my pocket wherever I go, that's amazing, right? So we always need to be thinking about, as presenters, as communicators, what's the message we want to convey, and not get caught up in the numbers, but get caught up in the message behind the numbers.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%. The mistake we see so often with especially business professionals and also business leaders is that they assume that data and numbers are intrinsically meaningful. They just, that's my number, take it, understand it, it's important, use it, remember it. But that's not how our mind or how our brain works. So what matters is, as you said, the story and the message behind the numbers.
Right. And the larger a number is, the more abstract it becomes, right? And then it really becomes meaningless. So like another example of how I use visuals to illustrate this, in the United States, unfortunately, the statistic is that 3 out of 10 or 30% of high school students don't graduate on time from high school, right? So if you just put up that number and statistics and a graph, it just gets lost in the clutter. But if you show a picture of 10 high school kids and then say, of these 10 kids, 3 of them won't graduate, and you dissolve them or you disappear, or you say to the audience, which of the 3 will it be? All of a sudden, it's like, well, that could be my child, my niece, my nephew, my neighbor, right? Then that number, 3 out of 10 or 30%, which is abstract, it's like, oh, that's too bad. When it becomes actually children, then it has meaning. Then you have the human element, the emotional component behind the numbers. I think that's where a lot of business professionals miss out. You miss the human element of what the numbers represent.